let's start the show with Ragin Cajuns men's baseball. It's never easy for the Cajuns baseball team, even when it looks like it's going to be, which is odd. Even when it looks like it's going to be easy, you're up 11-1. It's breezy, easy breezy, beautiful, cover girl kind of game. Then the 6th inning comes along, I believe.
Yes.
They score 8 runs. McNeese scores 8 runs. But we'll get into that. So after starting 1-7 on the season, the Louisiana baseball team is now 5-7 and currently on a 4-game winning streak. Their first series win of the season was over Maryland, 2-1. First game, 4-2 loss, but they beat them 43 in 14 innings and 2-1 in the third game. Let's talk about that Maryland series just a little bit, especially game 2 where you go to 14 innings.
It really shouldn't have, honestly. Like, the Cajuns had so many opportunities against Maryland in game 2. I think they had runners in scoring position in literally each of the extra innings prior to the 14th. They just couldn't bring them in. I want to look up, like, I'm going to do some research and see what their stats with runners in scoring position were in that series. It was abysmal. But, the pitching was fantastic in that game. They held Maryland's, the bullpen was great. They held Maryland scoreless, and that kept giving the Cajuns more and more chances. Eventually, they finally cashed in with a little bit of help from some errors from Maryland, and they ended up winning the game in extras. That was a really big thing for them. They finally learned how to win one of those games. They had come so close a couple innings prior, and they finally broke through it and picked up a win. And, to win the series in the third game, you knew they started to feel the ball starting to roll. And, now they're on a 4-game winning streak. So this team has learned how to win, which was one of their biggest issues in the first, couple weeks of the season. So they have the talent. They know how to win. Watch out.
Yeah, you can kind of see that as you go along with these games, that sense of learning how to win has shown, because these have been close games, that whether it be 2-1, 3-1, and even when they were up 11-1 against McNeese, it got down to 12-10 and bases loaded in the 8th for McNeese.
Mm-hmm.
And they earlier in the season, a few games in, they could have blew that lead earlier, but they got the ball rolling with 3 straight wins, learning how to win, and they got over that kind of hump. Well, I mean, it's still early, but that's what it kind of seems like. So they followed that 2-1 win in the third game, the series win over Maryland, with a win over Nichols, 3-1. As you said, boring game.
All right, well, I'll say this first. The 2-1 win in the third game was probably the most important win so far, because they won their first series, weekend series. They did it at home. They won with 2 hits in the game. They had 2 hits. One of them came in the 9th inning. The Maryland pitchers, you got to give them credit. The Louisiana hitters were off all night, but they took advantage of a couple errors. They ended up scoring the winning runs in the 9th inning, and they walked off another game. So after 2 straight walk-offs against Sam Houston, a walk-off against La Tech, where they were not the benefactors and they lost those types of games, they finally won 2 straight walk-offs themselves. So they go to Nichols. Nichols has a pretty decent team this year. They were, I think, 7-5 when we went to face them. And Nichols played very well. They pitched really well. But the Cajuns, once again, blew a lot of opportunities. Like, there were a couple times where I think they had men on first and third, and they would grind into a double play, or they wouldn't bring any runs in. It was just really, kind of disappointing that they couldn't get these runners in scoring position in. But they broke through. They ended up taking the win at Nichols thanks to great pitching, holding them to 1 run. And then the McNeese game happened last night, and the McNeese game was quite the spectacle. So,
yeah, Wednesday night. Again, recording this Thursday, but Wednesday night, 16-10 win over McNeese. It got close after it looked like it was going to be a Cajuns blowout. Louisiana's up 11-1. McNeese scored 8 runs in 1 inning, the 6th inning. McNeese down 12-10 in the 8th. They have bases loaded. The Cajuns escape, and they outscore McNeese 4-0 in the 9th inning. How big was kind of getting out of that 8th inning with bases loaded and then following that up in the top of the 9th, scoring 4 runs?
Well, listen, McNeese is a good team as well. They were riding a 5-game winning streak going into that game. So one of those win streaks was going to end. And, the Cajuns extended their streak. I think that the bullpen in the sixth inning was one of the most disastrous performances I've ever seen from a Cajuns pitching staff. They just could not find the strike zone. It was horrific. I think that 8-run inning, they said it was only 4 hits in that inning. They had 6 walks allowed. They just could not find the strike zone. The McNeese hitters had their bats on their shoulders, and they could have just kept them there. Caleb Armstrong came in, and Armstrong ended up being a great setup guy. He got us out the inning. He gave us another inning or two of work, and then we went to our best pitcher at the bullpen, which my biggest takeaway from these games is that we have a closer now, and that closer is Michael Lomont. He has been fantastic this season. I think he has 2 losses, but they weren't his fault. The Cajuns offense couldn't get things going. He's been great out the bullpen this season. He's been one of our most consistent pitchers, and he was great against McNeese. You were talking about how they closed the gap from 11-1 to 11-9. The game was 12-10 in the 8th inning, in the bottom of the 8th inning, and McNeese had the bases loaded. And they went to Lomont, and Lomont gets the clutch outs. He gets them out of that jam, and they go into the 9th inning, and they hit it through. Brendan Bro hits a 3-run home run, and they get the win. So, I saw a stat that said that in this game against McNeese, they had 3-run home runs, and before that game, they had 0 all season. So that's kind of interesting as well. The offense definitely showed up. The bullpen outside of Armstrong and Lomont was awful. You got a good starting performance from Schultz, and now you're just kind of moving on. You won 2 midweek games. Now you get to play Loyola Marymount this weekend in a 3-game stretch at home. And if you sweep this series, all of a sudden you're over 500. And after such a dismal 1-7 start, you're looking great.
Yeah, you'd be looking excellent because a 1-7 start. Even in the 1-7 start, the feeling was it's still early. There's still way a whole lot of season to go, and then you can kind of look past, that 1-7 start if you were to sweep the series against Loyola Marymount. But I mean, how hard is that to sweep a weekend series, and because that would have them at a 7-game winning streak, and that's hard to do in baseball.
Right. No, to sweep a series, you have to outplay your opponent in every phase: starting pitching, hitting, fielding, and bullpen play. Bullpen play has been a little bit of an issue this year, especially since the Cajuns have pitched Lomont in 2 straight games, so he's probably not going to be available for Friday. But he should be available for Saturday, maybe Sunday, depending on the situations. I'm looking for good starting pitching performances. Hopefully these starters can go a good 6, maybe 7 innings, giving up 1 or 2 runs. That's kind of what I'm looking for, I'm hoping for. And if you see that, you see good, and you keep the errors down, which they've been doing more recently. You're not seeing as many Cajun errors now in their winning streak. At the start of the season, the defense was pretty horrific, and that was a big reason why they started off so slowly. But now they're starting to get together a little bit. Still a couple hitters I want to see kind of wake up, get the ball rolling. And if they do that against Loyola Marymount, I think that they have a great shot to maybe pick up the series, maybe even get a sweep.
I mean, what helps is these are all at the Teague, even the midweek games. So you have a long home stretch here.
Yeah.
From Friday to about Wednesday, you'll be at home.
Well, it's nice because they had the home stretch last weekend against Maryland. Then they went on the road for these 2 games against Nichols and McNeese, and they picked up their first road wins of the season. But now they're coming back home. Friendly confines, they picked up 2 straight wins against Maryland there. So I'm sure that they're looking forward to coming back, riding a 4-game winning streak, hoping to keep it to extend it in front of their home fans.
So what are you looking out for in this 5-game stretch leading up into our next show next week?
I'm looking to see how if the offense can start to get clutch hits. I think, the clutch factor of this team has been a big issue at the start of the season. They're really not great in bringing runners in. Now, last night against McNeese, they picked up a bunch of really clutch hits, and that's why they scored 16 runs. But throughout the season, this offense could have been a lot better, and they could have picked up a lot more wins. So I'm looking to see that, different players and how patient they are at the plate. I'm looking to see how the bullpen performs without maybe one of their premier arms being available for some of the games. and looking to see how deep the starting pitchers can go. Last week against Maryland, the only loss they had was the start by Gunnar Leger, who only went 4 1/3, which he's still coming back from his injury.
It's going to take time.
Yeah, it's going to take time, but I'd like to see him get up to 5, maybe 6. So yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to mention before we move on?
Well, last week I said that this was going to be a bounce back weekend for the Cajuns, and they've bounced back, and I'm looking for them to extend this streak. If they go 4-1 in this stretch, I think they're looking great.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're right all the time, Charlie, but you're right all the time, Charlie. Congratulations.
I got my little glass ball, and
yeah, it's all in the studio, guys. Yeah. Don't worry. We have the glass ball and everything. All right. Speaking of things that are not easy, the men's basketball team cannot seem to win a Cajun Dome season finale.
Yeah.
that's kind of what it seems to
inferior
be.
Teams.
Yeah, they lost to Little Rock in the final home game last season, and I can't remember Little Rock's record.
They were like the worst team.
They were like a 6-win team.
They were like the worst team in the Sun Belt.
And this past weekend, they lost to App State 90-80. Not only the first time they lost to App State, it was the second time they lost to App State this season. Lost
App
the
State's
season
4th
series.
and 5th wins in conference were to the Cajuns.
But before that, they defeated Coastal Carolina 83-70. So let's look at Coastal before we get into App State. Or do you want to do like bad news before good news kind of do?
Let's just go chronologically. Let's get the good news out first.
All right, we'll do it chronologically. Coastal seemed to be a blowout all the way, but it did get close for a second until the Cajuns made a late run to seal that one. Well, kind of what are your takeaways? I mean, you called it in the middle of the game. We were texting each other. You were like, this Coastal team can shoot.
Yeah,
they can put the ball in the basket. So be wary at any point in this game. They'll make a run. Yeah,
no, they did. The Cajuns had like a 25-point lead.
Yeah.
At one point, they blown the thing open in the first half. They were playing great defense, good offense. They were getting some open shots, open looks, and then at this one stretch in the second half, everything just changed, and they looked really stagnant on offense. Their defense was allowing a bunch of buckets. And Coastal went on that run that I was worried about. They got down to like 7 points late in the game, but the Cajuns kind of sealed the deal. It was a much better performance from them than their first game, especially defensively, where they allowed 11 threes in their first game against Coastal. So the defense was a lot better. The offense was about as good. The offense started out hot. They kind of cooled off late in the game, but it was still enough to pick up the win. I came away thinking that if the Cajuns played that well, like as they did against Coastal in the Sun Belt tournament, I think that they would go pretty far. And then they dropped a dud against Appalachian State, which is, I think, one of the worst performances of the season, actually. Yeah,
we could talk about App State. See, things seem to be going well. And then you have a game like App State that makes you question, what is this team going to do in conference play?
Something about senior day at home against inferior teams.
And let me say,
it's a curse.
I was thinking about this. There could be a little bit of like Mardi Gras weekend factor. You're playing an early game on Sunday. I'm just saying.
Maybe.
I don't know. There could be something there. A little fatigue.
They were sloppy.
Because when you have something off like that with a team that's been playing well over the past month, and you're having an early game on Sunday after, a Mardi Gras weekend, something could be up.
Yeah, no, they were. As I said, they were sloppy, and especially early in the game, way too many turnovers early, and they let App State build a 10-point lead that they held on to for most of the game. The Cajuns made a run at it. They got down to, I think, 2, maybe 4 around halftime, but App State was pretty consistent, and the Cajuns just weren't as consistent on offense or defense against them. They gave up 90 points to App State, which in these 2 games this season, App State has scored 190 points against them. Something absurd. It's just I don't know what it is about that offense the Cajuns just struggle with.
Something about, because over the course of the last 5-6 games, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they've been holding opponents under 80.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the reason for this late turnaround and new identity, is they're actually playing defense and they're holding opponents under 80. Then you have this App State offense that comes in, and you seem to struggle with this App State offense, and they score 90 points on you.
Yeah, I mean, App State had lost to ULM, had lost to ULM the day before, or a couple days before, and then ULM had lost to Coastal the next day. So you're thinking that, okay, so if Coastal beats ULM, the Cajuns can get a game up on ULM if they beat App State and take care of business, and they just didn't. So they're still tied in the standings. With 2 games left, they have Little Rock and Arkansas State, before the regular season's over.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't take care of business at home. They got to take care of it on the road. So
got to take care of it on the road. So just a little deep dive into the App State: 15 turnovers to 12 assists. Felt like more turnovers.
Yeah, it did. I was gonna say I would have thought it was in the 20s.
Just because it happened so early, and the sloppy play just continued from there. Just when you start a game off like that, you can't. It's hard to get back your feet under you.
Bad shot selection, sloppy passes.
7 of 24 from 3.
Bad offense.
Gant fouls out late in the game.
Yeah.
On a foul that just you could see Gant was upset after that one.
He fouls out on senior day.
Yeah. Then Cedric Russell only playing 20 minutes is a little curious.
He was hurt.
He was hurt?
He was either hurt or sick. He wasn't right.
I think he was sick, and because I think it was reported before the game he was sick.
They said at the start of the game, like, they had pulled him, and he obviously I don't think was feeling well. I think the flu's going around.
It's going around. I was about to say, be wary. The flu is going around, guys. Charlie may have it.
Maybe.
Stay away from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you okay, Charlie? All right, you're holding in. This is a flu game by Charlie on this radio show right now.
Something like that.
Charlie's flu game. That's what this one is going to be called. All right, so the Cajuns will go on the road for their final games of the regular season to play Little Rock and Arkansas State. They beat Little Rock earlier this season, 75-61, but they lost to Arkansas State 94-83. Little Rock is 10-19 overall, 7-7 in 7-7 at home. Arkansas State is 6-10 in conference, 12-17 overall, 9-3 at home. I don't know. I don't know about these games. These games are tricky. I feel like the Little Rock one should be a win. Arkansas State's tricky. What are you thinking?
The Cajuns haven't been good on the road in conference play this season. Arkansas, Little Rock, the first game against them, Jaquine and Gant dropped 45, I think, in that win. So I think that they're going to be very wary of our best player and how to try and guard him. So I think other players might have to step up in that game. Arkansas State, they came to the Cajun Dome and they dropped 93, you said, on us. So the Cajuns defense is definitely going to have to step up if they want to pick up a win on the road against State. And I think that it is a necessity to win these last 2 games if they want to get a top 4 seed in conference play.
I was about to say, what is still in play? Top 4 seed still in play?
Top 4 seed still is in play.
So you need to win these 2 games. And they're winnable. Like we said, the teams in the Sun Belt Conference, it's pretty much like any given night. Like, these teams are beatable.
Right.
So this Arkansas State game is one definitely to highlight, but you don't want to overlook Little Rock leading up into the Arkansas State game. Just because you beat them and held them to 61 points in the first matchup, you did give up 94 to Arkansas State. I don't know. Defense has been playing better. I believe in the defense, but as you said, the road struggles are...
Something
it's been a trend.
For.
It's been a trend. So, all right, let's go to women's basketball. The Ragin Cajuns women's basketball is 7-20 after dropping both games 67-62 to Coastal Carolina and 83-69 to App State. They will close out their season with 2 home games against Little Rock and Arkansas State. The women's basketball team is 5-7 at home. They're 2-12 on the road. I wrote about that this week on the Vermilion, and their 12 road losses, the most amount of road losses since 2012. So they've been pretty bad on the road, but pretty good at home. 5-7, that's not bad. You can end up at 500 at home. So
right,
just finish this season strong, and then get ready for conference play. The conference tournament.
Right.
Yeah. So the softball team. Let's go into the softball team.
Okay.
Very, very interesting weekend.
Right.
That happened with the softball team. So the softball team is 15-3. After only 2 games this past weekend, one resulted in an 8-0 win over Arkansas State. Dominant win over number 23 in the country at the time. And the other was a 9-1 loss to Oklahoma in 5 innings, run ruled in that game.
Yes.
The other 2 games were canceled, so we can only talk about the 2 games that we saw. Oregon State and Oklahoma, just polar opposites of games, but Oklahoma, I mean, we highlighted them last week.
They're a perennial powerhouse. They're one of the best teams in the country, and they showed it. But the Cajuns did pick up a top 25 win, which is what you want to see. They split the games, which is kind of what I was expecting. As I said, before I knew those other 2 games would be canceled. 3-1 would have been fantastic. 2-2 would also work. I would have liked to see the Cajuns get another shot at Oklahoma, just to see how they would adjust and change their game plan up a little bit, especially against some of those hitters for Oklahoma who are very good. But they only got the one shot. Maybe they'll get it later in the season. Who knows? But I was definitely happy with their win over Oregon State.
Definitely. I mean, dominant win over Oregon State, 8-0. And then, Oklahoma, what are you going to do? They were number 4, back-to-back national champions, 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
They're
a powerhouse.
Oklahoma just showed who they are, basically.
Right.
So, the Louisiana,
at their house, too.
Right. The Louisiana softball team will start conference play with a record of 15-3. They will travel to Texas State for a 3-game series. Then they will take on Baylor at home on Monday. And then Nichols on Wednesday at home. So, interesting. A little Baylor rematch on Monday. But the start of conference play, where we've talked about how dominant they are in the Sun Belt.
I'm excited to see how well they do this season as well, because they have a great team. So, with how dominant they've been in conference play with lesser teams, I'm really excited to see what kind of run they go on.